General, Section 13, Public School Employee Tax Credit Program, and to provide an effective date. I am sponsoring this legislation for ordinance number 2030. Currently, the city does not have direct input over the school system. Recently, in this past session in Annapolis, the state passed enabling legislation that allowed different jurisdictions to offer public school employee tax credits. What you guys have received is this ordinance will allow for property tax credits for any full-time employee that lives within the city of Laurel and works for the Prince George's County Public School System that serves a school that serves City of Laurel students. So this would include the middle school that is outside of city limits but still serves our students, any of the charter schools such as CMIT where city students go there, but it's outside the city limits. So as long as a city employee or a city resident that works for Prince George's County schools that serve one of our students is eligible for this. Are there any questions from the council? Mr. Simmons?
Yeah, more just some clarifications. I know, we had a chance to connect, but just for residents who might be looking at this too, part of the definition of who's eligible is really constrained by the legislation that was passed by Maryland. So if folks are looking at this, they might be saying, hey, what if I live in Laurel, but maybe work at a Howard County school or an Anne Arundel County school? And I actually had a couple of constituents in that situation. As much as we'd like to at the city level, we're just not able to expand that definition because of the limits by the state. Although perhaps we might approach them to see at some point there might be opportunity. Same thing on the private school side. Although we have private schools inside the city limits, again, the state definition doesn't allow us to expand for purposes of this.
Correct. Councilwoman Clark, I see that you're unmuted.
Yes, I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
So I noticed well, first of all, thank you. I think this is a great idea. My mother was a retired teacher, my aunt and my cousins are all retired teachers. So, and my friends. My only question is, I noticed on page 3, section 4, that it states a dwelling has a maximum assessed value of $500,000. Are we including what the minimum is to understand the range, or is there a minimum? Because I wanted to look up, and I noticed that Prince George's County, the salary for teachers generally ranges starting at $55,392 and caps at $84,537. Most of the time with a doctoral degree and master's, they range around $75,763. So to afford a $500,000 home, they'd have to make between $91,000 and $130,000. So I'm just concerned that this may not really be able to be utilized if there isn't a range.
So this does not cap at a minimum. That is just the maximum.
Okay.
So that is the assessed value, and that is copied from the state legislation. So if they live in a home that is worth $600,000, they're still eligible, but only for up to $500,000.
Okay. And is there a cap on how many residents can apply per year? I didn't see that in here.
So that is the same as other city tax credits that we offer, whether it's to veterans, first responders. That is set in the budget every year by the mayor's office. So it is a first come, first served program.
Okay, so, well, do you mind telling me? I'm not sure. I haven't seen it anywhere yet. If there's a certain number of applications, I know sometimes when we send them out, people may say, oh, it seems to be closed. Is there a certain number included with this?
Nope. So this legislation will enable the mayor to put it into the next budget.
Okay,
So that it is not included in this.
okay. I think that's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Clark. Any additional comments or questions from council members that haven't had a chance yet? Hearing none, I see that Mr. Simmons has another question. We'll go back to him.
Sorry, just to add on, I know we mentioned the other credits that exist, the elderly, over 65, veterans, and public safety officers. One thing that came out in the research, and I think that the clerk's office, was the state legislation originally provided for a duration of 5 years on those credits, but this newer legislation didn't have a duration of 5 years, and that's why it's not in this wording here. And that we'll, as a city, will be going back to amend those other credits just to, so for folks, if you have, or you're thinking about doing the veterans, the over 65, or the public safety credit, know that that duration will be lifted, and sort of we're working on that piece. The other thing to mention, just again, for folks who might be looking into it, there's a sort of a mutual exclusion for those who are also receiving the homestead credit. So just be aware of that as well.
Correct. The state legislation did not allow for residents to be able to take multiple credits. They can choose one or the other. So as Mr. Simmons said, they get to, if they're on the homestead tax credit, they should stay with that one. If they do not have that, then they can take one of these other credits. Any additional comments or questions from the council or Mayor Sidnor? Is there any opposition to placing this on the agenda for the Mayor and City Council meeting on October 16th? Hearing none, we will move forward with that legislation. Agenda item number 3, ordinance number 2031, an ordinance amending the general operating budget and capital improvement program of the Mayor and City Council of Laurel, Maryland for the fiscal year July 1, 2024 through June 30th, 2025, and to provide an effective date. Director Saylor, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Here we are with our second amending ordinance for FY 2025. So you'll see on page 1, we're adding $100,000 to the county grant revenue category. So Ms. LeBlanc was able to make a successful application to Prince George's County, and we received $100,000 for programs at the Laurel Multi-Service Center. It is intended that $50,000 will be used for supplies for the medical suite and $50,000 for security enhancements to the facility. So you'll see the corresponding addition on page 6 to the 326 department budget. Any questions on that part before I move on to the capital improvement program?
Are there any questions from the council on the first part of this legislation? Seeing none, I believe we can move ahead.
Okay, thank you. And then on page 7 of your packet, you'll see an additional $30,000 being added to the council chambers and room for upgrade project. These funds are coming from the PEG money, the public equipment grant funds. That's 3% of cable subscriptions of our residents that we receive on a quarterly basis that we can use for equipment at Laurel TV and in the chambers to broadcast. So the $30,000 will be specifically for a new TriCaster, which will improve It'll work with the other new equipment for the project that was already approved. The bid recommendation was approved last October, but we need this additional piece of equipment that will broadcast the hybrid meetings and regular Zoom meetings or Teams meetings. It will broadcast it through Laurel TV more effectively, working with the other new equipment. So that brings this project to $330,000. And that's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you, Director. Councilman Mills, I see you have your hand raised.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Director Blair, I was just, I'm sorry, Director Seller. I was just wanted to know, in this day and time with like a lot of people getting away from the cable networks, I know that Laurel TV is a like public access station. And so with people going away from cable networks, does that take away, do we lose those funds like that you just mentioned?
Right. So with people shifting their subscriptions, you know, we're well aware that those funds, and they have been decreasing over the years with more streaming. But these funds are already in hand that we've received over the last couple of quarters. So we're always mindful of it when we put the budget together. In the budget is the 5% portion. So we get 5% of the subscriptions, and that's in the general operating budget. The 3% is held aside and we budget it as needed in the capital budget. There are some IT issues. We funded all of our fiber installations throughout the city with those PEG funds over the years. So we've made the best use of the funds, but yes, we're very mindful that those funds are changing. And Mr. Cornwall Shield works with the INET group on the franchise agreements and keeps an eye on what's happening at the federal level, because there's every 5 years, there's a push to eliminate those funds from us receiving them, from the governments receiving them.
Do you have any money suggestions as far as like, you know, in this day and time, as far as, you know, try to recruit that from, you know, like the Sling TV and the streaming networks and so forth?
Right, that would really be part of any sort of franchise agreements, to make sure that we get money just from internet subscriptions, as opposed to the full cable packages that people are getting away from. So it's really not for us to say, it's at that franchise level. So the INET group works on that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mills. Any further questions?
Yes, I have a question. Oh, I'm sorry. Councilmember Mills, did you have more questions?
Yeah, well, I mean, no, you go right ahead.
You sure? Go.
All right.
Okay.
Councilwoman Clark?
I just had a question, and I'm not sure, Director Saylor, if you have the answer to this. The residents, I assume, would be very curious. What would be the difference in the upgraded system compared to what we had previously before putting or adding in the $30,000 enhancement? If you don't have that answer today, that's understandable, but I would be curious and would love to know what the difference or the enhancement would be.
You have that. Not to put Mr. Cornwall Shield. It will simplify the broadcast process of the hybrid meetings, and streamline the broadcast of Zoom meetings. Mr. Cornwall Shield can feel free to jump in if he'd like. But that's my understanding of what this piece. We have the piece, but a new piece is going to work better with the other new equipment that we're already getting. I mean, they're working in the chambers now, installing all the other equipment that was already approved. That was a Anne Arundel County Public School contract that we wrote for that. There was no end of trouble getting all the pieces and parts. Still supply chain issues at that time for that type of equipment delayed the project. So
Director Cornwell-Shield, would you like to speak a little further on that?
Sure. This is really falls under the communications department and Director Natalie Williams, but I can speak to a few of the improvements that this particular piece of equipment bring. The current broadcast piece of equipment that this replaces has some limitations in the number of inputs that it can handle. And along with the chambers and meeting room 4 broadcast upgrades, we do need the ability. We do need the increased capacity that the newer equipment would provide. It'll also improve performance. It'll be able to handle future technologies as we move forward toward 4K broadcasting. It'll be able to handle those higher resolutions. It also has some more graphics capabilities in terms of the overlays that can be put on broadcast programming, as well as being able to natively handle online meetings like Zoom and Teams, rather than having to add additional technology like we are now to fill those gaps.
Thank you both. I appreciate it.
thank you.
Mr. Mills, I see your hand is still up. Do you have more questions or comments?
Yeah, how do you put the hand down? I got it. No, I didn't realize it was still up though. But I do have one quick question. Just kind of an idea as far as fetching funds. Like those tower networks, speaking of the cable networks, but what about, like, do we receive the network funding from networks that have towers in the city?
We do receive some utility franchise funds. I'll have to look a little more closely at that and get back to you, but there is a utility franchise fee that we receive.
Okay.
I think those are on the towers.
Okay.
But we'll check into it and let you know.
Okay. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Any further questions or comments from the council or the mayor? Is there any opposition to placing this ordinance on the next council meeting? Hearing none, we will add this to the agenda for first public hearing on October 16th at 6 p.m.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 4, ordinance number 2032, an ordinance of the mayor and city council of Laurel, Maryland to amend chapter 2, administration, article 1 entitled in general, section 2-3 entitled city seal, city department seals and logos, and official city branding logos of the Laurel City Code to change the section title to city seal, city department seals and logos, official city board, commission, and committee logos, and official city branding logos, and require written permission of the mayor to use the city seal or city department seals or logos, official city board, commission, and committee logos, and official city branding logos for non-city related use in accordance with the city's policy on use of city seals and logos and providing for an effective date. That is quite a mouthful. I was, again, bringing this legislation to the council. The previous legislation that was passed in 2021 had a very defined list of which city branding that was protected and did not include any new or future branding. Since the time of that passage in 2021, we've added additional departments such as CREM. There have been different commissions and committees such as Environmental Affairs, B-City, the Pride Day Committee, and Juneteenth that either have created their own logos or would like to create their own logos. So this legislation really just provides protection to everything that we currently have and provides protection to all future branding of the city. With that, I will open the floor to the other council members. Are there any questions or comments on this ordinance?
Yes, I have.
Go ahead, Mr. Mills.
So I wanted to add to that logo, the new Thrive logo.
I did not read that one off, but the way this legislation is written, that would be included. So this is anything that the city creates now or in the future.
Okay. Thanks.
That would fall under city branding.
Yes.
Councilman Simmons, I see your hand. Mr. Simmons, you're on mute.
Sorry, I hit the wrong button. Definitely makes a lot of sense to expand that definition. Thank you for doing that. A small thing, and this might be a question for the solicitor. Does it help and does it make sense for us to say the mayor or his designee? Just, I suspect the mayor may not want to be sitting there signing for a bunch of logo releases, or perhaps it's already implied in this language. But if it helps to include it, certainly maybe at this stage, potentially an idea.
I believe it is implied, but Ms. Anderson, are you able to just respond on that?
Yes, I think that we should leave it as the mayor because I believe that the way that we have handled other authorizations in the rest of the code, it is designated as
Implied
the
within
mayor.
that definition. Okay, I suspected that might be the case, but I just wanted, if it helped to catch it now, I'll work it in now, but it sounds like we're good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simmons. Additional questions or comments on ordinance 2032?
I have a question or two.
Go ahead.
The first question I do have, I looked up to see if perhaps it was written, and I think the original from 2021 was ordinance number 1968. And I didn't see any detailed process or even a link that could connect someone to understand what the process is for requesting that from the mayor and or the administration in regards of using the city seal or the logos, and the time frame of the turnaround. I was looking through the website to try to find that. That's one thing. And also, I noticed that on page 3, like you said, President Kole, that the logos were included there at that time. So is there a plan to include the new logos as they did in 2021 on that third page, or were you just going to leave them off and only have the ordinance?
The goal was, so on your second question, the goal was to leave them off so that we did not have a specific list, so that it protects all city branding. Because as Mr. Mills mentioned, there was the Thrive logo that just was used for the rollout launch of the strategic plan. So it would be very exhaustive for all the departments to put all of their branding on this list. So leaving it off that protects everything. On your first question, maybe the mayor's office, can you guys speak more on the process for the forms? Or Director Cornwell Shield, you have your hand up.
Not to preempt the mayor's office, but under the under the mayor's office page on the website, there is at the bottom of the left-hand side menu a link to request use of city seal and logos, and that has all of the guidelines and the form to request access to use the seal or other logos. I don't know whether that has been updated to reflect the plans to adopt this legislation, but
yes, that's sufficient. I guess that's a written request. It's a written request, and we actually what you're using it for. So form is still sufficient. We don't need to update it.
Thank you, Mayor and Director.
Yes, thank you, Director and Mayor.
Any additional comments or questions, Councilwoman Clark?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mills, your hand is up again.
Yeah, may I ask, what is there a fee to use the logo, and what use or purpose would someone besides the city use the logo?
Probably a sponsorship organization you're working with. You know, they want to create a flyer before they put our logo on it. They got to request our logo. Plus, they got to request our sponsorship first as well. So I'm quite sure there'll be meetings with you all, council members of my office, or organization department sponsorship of that organization. So that's one of the reasons. Other than that, most of it still going to be used by department heads and our committees. But like I said before, if a nonprofit organization want to partnership with us, then they will create the flyer and make sure they can get our permission before they put the flyer on. Well.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councilwoman Clark?
I do have one question after Director Cornwell Shield shared the website link with us. Just looking at the document of where the residents would submit updating this ordinance for 2032 doesn't really align with the current form. If there are new logos, because it specifies, I think everything doesn't fall under just city seal. There's also committee logos. So I don't know if you want to consider updating that, but it will be difficult for people to fill that out properly. And I know that has been a concern with the residents or a frustration with the committee members when they're trying to get something approved in a timely manner or at all.
We'll
Thank
take a
you,
look.
Councilwoman Clark. Any other questions or comments from the council on ordinance 2032? Is there any opposition to adding ordinance 2032 to the next council meeting on October 16th? Hearing none, we'll add that to the agenda. There is currently no further business before the mayor and city council for tonight's work session. With that, we will adjourn the meeting at 6:25 p.m. Our next mayor and city council meeting will be held on Wednesday, October 16th at 6 p.m. virtually. This date was changed to reflect Indigenous Peoples Day. Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.